All right, hello everyone. My name is Ricardo, and I'm glad to be back with another video. Now, this video is going to be a series for beginner pianists, right? We're going to be going through a book, the All-in-One Adult Course book by Alfred. I'll put the link in the description because there's multiple teach yourself books, right? But this, I believe, for myself is a trustworthy book. It's a book that I used growing up. This is the first book that I had that I sat in and learned piano from about 7 or 8 years ago. Now the only downfall of this book, in my opinion, is that it's too easy, if that makes sense. It gives you everything I believe you need, but I believe it does present a challenge for musicians who are like me, kind of learning backwards. If you're a beginner, you have no knowledge, this would be perfect for you. But for some of us who may have had some knowledge, maybe you grew up in church, you was around music, or you are around musicians, it can get a little boring, right? And yeah, that's the only downfall for, once again, for those who have a background in music. So without further ado, the way that this series is going to go is we will go through this whole book, but remember, this is also me teaching you piano as if you were my student. So in between this, I might give, side exercises in the lessons, even though we might be focusing on the page, right? So that's just another thing. All right, let's just go ahead and get started. We all got 5 fingers on each hand. Your thumb is finger 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And by the way, we are starting on page 12, right hand C position. Now, the reason why we got to know our numbers for our fingers is because as you look in the book, you might see under right hand warm up where it says fingers, and you got these numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is not counting the beats. For example, some of us might get into the habit of, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's not why those numbers are there. They're there to tell you what finger to play for each note. What note is going to get what finger. So for example, we have our middle C. That's another thing we want to look at. When we look at our keyboard and our piano, piano, whatever you're on. Keyboard, by the way, is something that is electronic. And then a piano will be an acoustic piano, such as a grand piano, or even the piano that I'm using is a sample of an acoustic piano, right? Upright pianos can be acoustic. So basically, it's just something that does not have to be plugged in. Keyboards are usually plug-in electronics, and pianos, just in a piano, acoustic pianos for acoustic instruments. So yeah, I recommend understanding that middle C, which is right here. We know that this is middle C because it's the C that is the most middle to the keyboard. So this C is not the most middle to the keyboard because we left a little bit. This C is not the most middle of the keyboard because of how much of a big layover it is of all these keys. But right here is a ground surface of being towards the middle, okay? Oftentimes, the middle C is going to be closest to the logo that you see in your keyboard. So for example, my logo for my keyboard is right here, but my middle C is right here. So it's closer to the middle. When you're looking at learning notes on the keyboard, it can be very difficult and hard. So I recommend before you get into your literature, you spend the first 3 to 5 minutes doing this exercise. You start at the very end of your keyboard, and the note at the end of your keyboard is going to depend on what keyboard you have. So for example, I have an 88 key keyboard, and the lowest note that I have on my keyboard is an A. It might be different for you. So don't get in the habit of, the last note is an A. It's not true. You got to figure it out. So here's how we can identify our notes. Look at these. We have black notes in groupings of 2 and 3. 2 black notes, 3 black notes, 2, 3, and it repeats. So in order for this to make sense, the piano alphabet goes from A to G. Once you get to G, you're right back at A. You're not going to go to H, I, J, K. Once you get to G, you go back to A. So let's look at that. This lower note is A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Now we're back at A. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. A, B, C. And I want you to do that for the first 3 to 5 minutes, all the way up your keyboard. Do it twice. Then you're going to do it doing it backwards. So for me, I have an 88 key keyboard. My highest note is a C. And we go backwards. C, B, A, G, F, E, D, C, B, A, G, F, E, D, C. All right. Now we got that out the way. That's something I want you to do for 3 to 5 minutes. Up, going up twice, and going down twice. That should take you 3 to 5 minutes if you're a beginner and you're still learning the keys. This should be a little difficult. It is going to trick your brain up, but it's going to teach you something that you won't get from this book, right? There's just certain things that you're not going to get from a book. You just have to do it. It's going to come from an instructional teacher or something like that, okay? Now, every time we have 2 black notes, the first black note going down is always going to be C. 2 black notes going down, C. 2 black notes going down, C. 2 black notes going down, C. All right, so now this is right hand position, right hand warm up, page 12 in our book. First finger is going to go on C, all right? Second finger is going to go on D. Third finger is going to go on E. Fourth finger is going to go on F. And fifth finger is going to go on G. Let's go ahead and put it in that position. The beauty of this is oftentimes we don't have discipline in our fingers. So we'll put our hand down and just do like this. We have no structure. Have structure. Put your hand in a position that it needs to be in. I got all of my fingers where it needs to be. So if I to happen just to go like this is going to hit E because my third finger needs to be on E. If I was to do this, it's automatically going to hit G. Oftentimes we have our hands in weird positions, and when it comes time to play the note, now we got to figure out where to put our hand at because we never had it in a position. Keep your hand in the correct position it's supposed to be in. This is the position. This is known as C position. C position is just the first 5 notes of that major scale or that minor scale. So we could be here if it's minor or if it's major. All right. All right. So now looking at page 12, we have this box called treble clef sign. It's this little pink box right in the middle. Treble clef sign is used for right hand notes. That's not all the time, but for the purpose of this video, whenever we see that treble clef sign, which is also known as a G clef, so there's 2 names for it. You have treble clef, which is what it's commonly known as. You're not going to really hear many people talking about, oh yeah, the G clef. You won't really hear that, but it is, just in case you get asked that, what is another name for treble clef? It's a G clef. And the reason why is because not only one, you hear people say it looks like a G, it can kind of look like a G. But secondly, when we have that curvature at the bottom of it, it circles around that G, which is the reason why they call it also the G clef, because it circles around that G, which is the second line in treble clef. All right. So now let's understand what a staff is. A staff is a set of 5 lines and 4 spaces. All right. So treble clef is on a staff, and the staff has staff, S-A-S-T-A-F-F, or you might hear the term stave, S-T-A-V-E, right? But most people say staff with the 2 F's versus stave with the V-E. All right. So these are just 2 little things I'm throwing at you, just little things I recommend writing down. So when we look at it, we always count from bottom to up. So the first line in treble clef is not the line that's highest, it's the lowest line, right? That's our foundation. So think about the foundation. So we have line, space, line, space, line, space, line, space, line. Once again, but in between the first line and 5th line, there are 4 spaces. All right. And in between the first line and 5th line, there are 3 lines. Okay. Just for you to have that in there. The first line is going to be E. The second line is going to be G. The third line is going to be B. The fourth line is going to be D. And the 5th line is going to be F. And the way you can remember that, so we have E, G, B, D, F. You can say something like, every good boy does fine. Every good boy deserves fudge. Whatever makes you happy. Only you can make, okay, sorry, old school stuff. All right, now here's the next part. We got 4 spaces. First space is going to be F. Second space is going to be A. Third space is going to be C. And the last space is going to be E. Easy way to remember that is that F-A-C-E spells face. All right, so we got the 5 lines in treble clef. Every good boy does fine. E, G, B, D, F. And we have the 4 spaces in treble clef. F-A-C-E, which spells face. Now, that's everything that we need. This is probably going to be the video that has the most talking because this is your first piano video. And I know, I get it. Many of you might skip this video because I'm doing a lot of talking. But the ones who stay for this video are the ones who's going to have the knowledge that they need to move forward. Many of you are going to move forward and you're going to have so many questions. What are the things at the top that's telling me is that the beats? No, it's your fingerings. If you would have been in the first video, you would have known. Those are the fingerings. Well, why is it that you got these 2 different types of clefs or different notes? Well, because one is treble clef and one is bass clef, or you can have tenor or alto, right? So I know we haven't done much playing yet, and you're kind of like, yo, you're doing too much talking. But that's what's going to separate you from a novice musician and somebody who actually has the knowledge. Not you can just play, but you have the knowledge. All right, that's enough talking. Let's get into it. All right, so we have a total of 3 staffs here, right? And notice these staffs has a treble clef, and then they also have something on top of it that says fingerings. So let's go ahead and line our hand up. So we got C, D, E, F, G. And remember, C is going to be with the 2 black notes, 1 down. F is going to be with the 3 black notes from the first one going down. So those are the 2 ways you can identify where you are in the music. And remember, it's all alphabetical order. So if this is C, this is not going to be E, because in the alphabet is not A, B, C, E. So if you have common sense, this should come easy to you. All right. So all we are doing is going up these 5 notes. We got C, D, E, F, G, and it repeats again. C, D, E, F, G. That is with the first line. All right. Now let's do it without me talking. Notice when I got to that G and I had to go back down to C, I didn't pause. Oftentimes beginners would do something like this. C, D, E, F, G, C, D, and they'll pause. Don't pause. When it comes to music, it's continuous. If the music is not indicating you pause, you do not pause. So you have to keep going. Once you get to the G, keep going. Now let's look at the second one. We're starting from G and going down to C. G, F, E, D, C. G, F, E, D, C. Without me talking. All right, now in the last example, because remember there's 3 staffs, total 3 staffs. And now we're going to use the last example, which starts on the C. And then when we get to that G, we're going to double the G and go back down. All right, so here it is. C, D, E, F, G, G, F, E, D, C. Now without me talking. All right, and that's your first piano lesson. So what you should be taking away from this lesson, if you're a beginner, you want to learn, or maybe you have some knowledge, but there's some things that's lacking. Learning all the notes up and down, being able to do it not only going forward, but backwards. And I'm telling you, it's going to be harder trying to do it backwards, because it's going to be harder. It's going to be a little difficult, right? Don't beat yourself up. Another thing, learn your fingerings. Learn those fingerings. What are the lines and spaces of treble clef, right? The lines E, G, B, D, F, and the spaces F, A, C, E. I know I'm saying it fast now, but I explained it, simpler earlier, so you can go back if you need to. And yeah, lastly, I want to talk about quarter notes, and I won't spend too much time on that. This is just to throw it in your ear, because next video will focus more on it. Now, these symbols that you're seeing, these little circles filled in with the line, that is a quarter note. Now, a quarter note, once again, it is a darkened circle with a line, because you'll see another note that's hollow. There's no darkness. It's just a circle that's not filled with a line. That's a different note. So quarter notes is a darkened, solid black note, like like this, blackness. And yeah, that's pretty much what it is. And a quarter note gets 1 beat when we're in 4/4. So remember, when we are in 4/4, which is a time signature, we'll get into that later, next video. 4/4, a quarter note gets 1 beat. And a beat is just a snap. You can think of it as a snap. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. So here's what a quarter note would sound like on this snap. I'm playing a note. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And oftentimes, if you ever hear a song, for example, you usually would clap on beats 2 and 4. And maybe if you're white, you might clap on beats 1 and 3, right? So here it is. We got 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? So you notice how it is. Oftentimes we clap on beats 2 and 4. But once again, like I said, we got some white people that clap on beats 1 and 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now we have some very eccentric people who claps on all the beats. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And why am I doing this? Because we all have clapped in our lives. And the thing about it is, everything around us is music. When you walk on the street, those are frequencies. I can record a frequency of a tree, of your foot walking, of how you burp, and I can find a note from that. So everything we do is in music. I even had a student, and if you want to end the video, you can end it now because now I'm just kind of going on a bit of a ramble here, personal stuff. So the piano lesson's over now. You can leave. But if you vibing now and we cool like that, go ahead and stay for the real ones. All right. Anyways, so I had a student, for example. I was teaching a rhythm and they burped. It was a triplet. It was like da da da, triplet, right? Triplet, ha ha. That's how it was like. Yeah. And I was like, that's a triplet. And I didn't even mean to do that on purpose, but it was just because I was in teacher mode. Everything is music. And so I look at her like, oh yeah, your burp was a triplet. That was a thing. And I did it on the piano. She's like, oh my gosh, what? Like, yeah, right. And so that's the beauty. That's the beauty. When you start to learn some of these simpler terms, you start to learn the theory behind what you're doing. You'll start to notice how everything is connected, right? It's just like reading the Bible. You got the Old Testament and the New Testament, right? And many people, it's not a sermon here, but many people try to, make it like the Old Testament is different from the New Testament and that they had nothing to do with each other. But when you really study the word and you really look at it, you'll see all these connections and how it's not as different I hope I'm saying that right. It's not as different as people try to make it seem. Same in music. You got people arguing over, well, is it better to cite? Is it better to read music or play by ear? It's better to play by ear, read sheet music. Both. They both will help you learn to read the sheet music and learn to play by ear. Is it better to play classical piano or jazz piano? Well, if you have an interest in both, do both. Now, if you don't have an interest, you don't have to. This video is a bit longer than I needed it to be, but we're here. Last thing I want to speak on is if you have a keyboard, practice using different sounds. So, for example, this keyboard that I use Keyscape. And this particular keyboard that I'm using is a Rhodes 1945 pre-piano. And I use different pianos practicing the same pieces, right? So when I was practicing Minuet in G by Bach, and I was working on that tune for one of my students, just working on it, trying to get it for them. I was practicing in grand piano. I was practicing it in electric piano, clarinets. I was practicing in toy pianos, clouds, all these different pianos, because it takes you from not being bored, because oftentimes, you're practicing a piece for like an hour, 45 minutes. It can kind of, you can get bored. So you got to trick yourself into wanting to stay here. And what helps me is going to different sound. I go to maybe an organ, or maybe I go, to a Rhodes or something like that. I don't just stick with the grand piano. Or oftentimes, for example, I grew up playing piano. When I started playing piano, I didn't start on the keyboard. I started on a real piano, on an upright piano, a Yamaha upright piano. That's where I learned to hone my craft. When I was in middle school, we had an upright piano in the room, and I would go in there and practice it. When I got to high school, which was a performing arts school, in every practice room we had an upright piano, in every music classroom we had a grand piano. So that's how I learned to play piano. So it was a bit difficult for me when I got my first keyboard, and to see how trash it was. And I say trash because and this is no disrespect to my mother. I'm thankful for her. I didn't even have the knowledge when we picked this keyboard out either. So it wasn't like it was her fault or it was my fault, which is like none of us had the knowledge. So when I got the keyboard, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is cheap. It's $100, $200 keyboard. It's Williams. Please, guys, don't get Williams. This is nothing against Williams. I think Williams, is good for people who might not have the financial money. I think Williams is good for people who are a bit in the fence of, do I want to do this or do I not want to do this? But I think if you are very, 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 very serious about piano, very serious, and you know this is what you want to do, and you know you might be a beginner, but this is something that you're going to be doing for church, maybe your wife, whatever. I recommend getting, if we're talking about just a piano, not a MIDI keyboard. So I have a MIDI keyboard, but if you're talking about just a regular digital piano, I recommend either a Yamaha or a Roland. Now, personally, I prefer Roland. I think Roland has the best feel when it comes to keys, comparing it to, once again, a real piano, because I grew up playing on a real piano. So when I played on a Roland, I feel like Roland just has the best weighted action. It has the best key bed. In my opinion, the velocity is good. The sound is good, in my opinion. Yamaha is good as well. I'm not the biggest fan of how their keys feel, but I like their sounds. I believe that Yamaha has some great sounds. I have a Yamaha motif is like the standard in the church. Well, not anymore. Now we get into, Nords, right? But Yamaha is like the OG in church. I mean, you probably never went to a church, like a black church, and did not see a Yamaha motif somewhere up in there, whether it was in the back closet, under the pews or whatever. They got a Yamaha motif somewhere. So yeah, I'm very much in a place where, like I said, you have to excite yourself with piano playing. It's not going to be easy because you're learning it new. Like, it's going to be hard. You're going to be frustrated. You're going to think you suck. But here's the thing. You won't see the results oftentimes until you do something you didn't know you could do. You do something you couldn't do. I remember there's a song called No Greater Love. So I remember when I first tried to learn that song, I think I was maybe a sophomore in high school. I could not learn that song for nothing. I mean, I could not learn that song, y'all. And then I want to say a year later, I went back to the song, not even on purpose. I was like, oh, I played it. I was like, whoa, I can play this. And it brought me back to when I couldn't play it. You won't see your progress until you're not focusing on your progress. Focus on just being the best musician you can. Focus on practicing and putting yourself in a position to grow. And I promise you, this is a promise. This is a promise. You will see the progress when you're not expecting it. It's like common sense. When you're expecting something, oftentimes you'll be more disappointed because you're expecting it and it's not going your way. You're being cocky, or you're being egotistical, or you're just being too naive, right? Because you want it now. It don't work like that with music, right? You have to take it slow, very slow. And it might be 6 months to a year before you're where you want to be in your goal, right? 6 months to a year. All right. So yeah, I'll see y'all in the next video.